name is Ronan Ortman. I'm from LiveView, and my colleague Scott Robinson from Three Screen Media, and we're going to give a little bit overview about how LiveView Cellular Uplink is used in sports coverage. I don't know that some of you attended the last session that was right here. It's a great segue to what we are presenting, and I would like to open maybe the presentation with a 2-minute video clip that Scott and his team edited that actually captured, and maybe Scott can talk about it a little bit more. He will speak about it a little bit later, but that's coverage of sports being used by LiveView equipment. Okay, so cellular uplink and sports coverage. So definitely I think live coverage using cellular bonding technology has came a long way. Do you remember this is a very, very new technology. It was invented by 2006 by LiveView, and primarily it was used by broadcasters because this was the easiest way to approach them. It made a long way until sports adopted that technology for various reasons. Sports needed much higher, lower delay, needed much better quality than what initially we were able to provide. But today, definitely, the bonding technology is making a name in sports and enhance a lot of sports activities and sports events and games and whatever is around that covered by the technology. So when we think about sports versus news, and this is also how the technology advances. In the early days, we had one unit that actually can bond and deliver the news or deliver the sports. And there is a major difference between sports and news, obviously. News gets all the way and needs some of the professional one, the same as sports need a satellite coverage. But today, I think in the terms of the equipment that we have to support all the way down from user-generated to major events is ready and is being deployed by various teams of various organizations to cover sports events. When we're talking about especially the difference between breaking news and sports event, when you do a breaking news, in most cases, the location is unforeseen. You don't know what to expect, and therefore, when you bring a cellular unit, sometimes it works, sometimes you might have difficulty because it's congested, sometimes it's very remote, you won't be able. when you do sports, it's usually foreseeable, and you can plan ahead, you can bring the right equipment, you can bring the right methods in order to support you to provide the feed that you need. When breaking news again, the cellular coverage is unknown. You don't know where something happens in the middle of the desert or in a town not close by to London. It might be that cellular coverage will be very poor and you won't be able to transmit. But when you're talking about sports event, you know in advance exactly what will be the condition. Yes, it can be congested, and yes, there might be problems, but with the right equipment, you can overcome that. With the right technology, you can overcome that. You can combine Wi-Fi, you can combine cassette, and you can combine LAN, and you can work around in order to make it work. And latency, both of them actually needs the same thing. Q&A and feed footage, both of them, both news and sports. So let me run by, basic case studies. I mean, we're talking about the long way that cellular bonding have been made. I think the 2012 London Olympics were the pinnacle in terms of coverage. More than 100 units were used by tier 1 broadcasters all over the world. At any given time, 20 units were broadcasting live. We broadcast more than 2,500 hours of transmission and 1.5 terabyte of data. The mix was between live feed and store and forward. So some of the stations will record something, and instead of rushing to the hotel and getting a Wi-Fi, they will use the cellular bonding in order to transmit it from the field or wherever they are. So they gave them the benefit to get HD quality video right from the place where they are, even if it took them a little longer. But if you think about taking that footage as running to the hotel, find the right line find the right Wi-Fi, bonding technology allows you to transmit the data in a much faster way that you can do. So let's just just refresh the memory for everybody how the technology is actually working. There is a field unit out there, which is a backpack or a belt unit that is using between 4 and 7 cellular connections within. We are taking the signal that is coming out of the camera and we break it into seven different streams and send it over the different cellular networks that are possible. The unit, on any given moment, is actually looking at the network strength and decide which part of the video is sent on which part of the network based on its reliability, based on its network strength. And we are always touching base with the cellular network in order to make sure that we provide the right channels on the right cellular modems. So we send it over the internet, and on the receiver end, which is either a cloud-based or a physical server, what we say, we bond them together. We bond those 7 channels, 4 channels together, and we output the video either to the broadcast, to the web, or to a mobile. This one happens because of the capability of that. The latency can go less than 1 second. And obviously, with that infrastructure, allows you to do from vehicles, from remote locations, from high-rise building, from urban canyons, wherever you get a cellular reception, you can transmit. So I think we started back the first time that we worked with cellular bonding in sports were the 2008 Olympics in Beijing, when NBC actually took 1 unit and actually tried that. And once they approved the technology, it moved on. And I think it took some time until it get into the sport. We had to do some advanced in technology in order to allow us to make sure that we can actually support sports with a high movement, with a latency. But I think we're there. I think right now the technology allows you to do sports coverage at its best. Another case study, for just an example, the Super Bowl coverage. Today we have about 10 NFL teams that are actually using our system, and when we're talking about fan engagement, most of those teams need to provide more data into their fans. And the ability to do that with satellite is a non-issue for them because of the high cost of that. So the only mean right now for them to actually increase the way that fan engagement is actually using our technology. So both, in the last game, both New York Giants, 49ers, and Ravens, the last Super Bowl, the 49ers, but this in Super Bowl, both Ravens and 49ers used our units. New York Giants, when using our system last year, they saw an increased spike in terms of usage that coming out of the website, and actually to see what they're doing. And let me just show you an example of
this is Media Day. This is where all the media from all over the world comes together in Indianapolis, home of Super Bowl 46. It is Super Bowl week. You're here. This is Media Day. What do you think about it?
This is fun. I think it's kind of like the last day before we get into our full game prep. So, it's something that we have to do, so you might as well enjoy it.
The fans are new to Media Day. This wasn't like that last time, which I think is cool, man. I think anytime you can get the fans involved with anything, it's just a great addition.
So this is how the New York Giants actually are using us. They're having one unit that goes and roam around the locker rooms, around the stadiums, interview athletes, interview the coaches, practice room, cheerleader tryouts, everything that is involved around live. And right now they've been able to actually transmit it back to their homepage. And this is a really true engagement for them. So, like I say, they live for Media Day, press conference, and behind the scenes fan coverage around the stadium. And this has been tremendously favorable by the NFL teams, the recent NFL teams. When we're talking about behind the scenes workflow, it's pretty much similar to what we talked about. There is a roaming unit on the back, send it over the split to cellular networks over the internet. And what they're using here, which is different from the broadcasters, that actually form a virtual servers, they send it out to any CDN and OVPs that we work closely with, and they can transmit it to a web device, to the web, or to the mobile. So it's a bit different from what we do. They don't need a physical server like the broadcasters, like NBC, BBC, and Sky and others. They're actually using a virtual server to do the broadcast to the web device. So just another example of how NBA are using to actually broadcast their games or behind the scenes to China, to NBA.com in China, which is the only way that Chinese people are actually being able to watch behind the scenes what's going on with the NBA games in the finals.
This year, the league is launching technologies like Live View, which allowed this two-person team to wander the garden, live streaming video to Chinese fans from this backpack computer.
We try to go for something a little more casual. It's like we're right there and we just want you to be there as well.
How does Derek Fisher's leadership influence this team this year?
A lot.
I mean, it's amazing. It's live streaming. So when we're standing there, player arrivals, when Kobe Bryant walks in, it gets streamed straight over to China, and that's really exciting for fans.
So again, this is a two-man team in NBA, the NBA.com, actually a photographer and this young lady who's actually is doing it for the third year in a row. And they're just going over to each games, starting with the playoff and all the way to the finals, and just covering everything for the Chinese fans. Just as a number, the Chinese site of the NBA.com during the finals, largely because of the fan coverage behind the scene, grew up about 40% higher than when it normally in the games. Now, some of it obviously attracted to those are the finals, but definitely they've been able to bring behind the scenes of LeBron James and any other things that you won't be able to get when you open the TV. They've just been able to go to places where traditional satellite can go and bring you cost-effective behind-the-scenes shots right into your screen. Another thing that is starting to gain more and more attention is smartphone feeds. LiveView developed an application which actually bonds together the cellular and the Wi-Fi, and when it all sits and communicate with the same server, you can have a camera and you can have a smartphone, all of them connected to a switcher, whether it's a TriCaster or any other means, and use it as yet another feed. We see that going more and more and more when we're talking about fans, where I actually can download that, or for a lot more people around the scene. If you're talking about the NBA previously, it's not just two-man bands. They can bring more people into the ground, not necessarily with the professional gear, but with an iPhone, and grab some images that are something that is very unique in terms of where you can actually go with an iPhone. It's a very cost-effective the way we do that. Another thing that is being very popular lately, as we see, is live race coverage from motorcycles, from bikes, from cars. Ford Rally used us for the last 2 years, actually providing mounting a device on the back of the car, transmitting live to the web, and actually the drivers are speaking with the audience back home, and there is kind of a quiz that they have to answer, and if they answer it right, that they the drivers get the keys to the next point that they need to drive. This is a coast-to-coast Ford Rally where we introduced the new Ford Focus. It was done both in 2010 and 2011. We've been seeing coverage of marathon, bicycle races, Ironman competitions, rowing, triathlons, car rally, Formula One, everything that has been done on that. Let me show you a quick example of live races. Is also very similar to what we talked about. The difference is where the field unit is mounted, whether it's a backpack or a belt pouch. When we're doing live race, they actually can put it on boats, they can put it on motorcycles, they can put it on choppers. Anywhere that you have cellular coverage, you can still get it. The same way going over to the internet, but there is a receiver in the production tent that gets that signal mixed with the actual race itself, and also going to the CDN and OVP and to the different web devices. A marathon Colorado, just to show you
Now, do you have them in your mirror, right?
Follow the runners and just cover the
Dale, are you there?
So the opportunities are
Something. All right, I'm switching to my other radio. Something's wrong.
Found by the organizers about the production companies that actually do that, to actually follow the races and bring more fans, more content to the fans, because this is where it needs to be. There is a constant need for more content to be brought back to the fans, and they found out, most of those production companies, that the way to do it is bringing cellular uplink, which is cost effective if you compare it to the conventional satellite one. I will now ask Scott Robinson for Twist Media to come on board and give his case studies about using the cellular.
Hi everyone. So I'm just going to give some practical examples of why we're using cellular uplink within our live sports workflow. I suppose sports is about 30% of our business. We did 6 events on Sunday, and sports was 2 of them. So that's probably a good indicator of what how much sports we do compared to other stuff. If you look at the recent projects we've done up there, there's some of those which are doing the kind of things that Ronan was talking about, which is press conferences, weigh-ins, kind of secondary content for major sports. But then there are others where we're actually using live view as an alternative to satellite or on-site encoders for the actual sport itself and fast-moving sports. So it's a mix of things that we're using live view for, but we're using live view as a fundamental part of our live production workflow, and we've used, I think, all of the various bits and bobs that LiveView created in various ways. In terms of distribution, what we tend to do is we distribute on a whole lot of different platforms for the events that we're doing, depending on what the event is, who the rights holder is, who we're doing it for. So places, a lot of stuff we're doing today is on YouTube. A hell of a lot of stuff we do generally is on Facebook, plus the other live streaming platforms. Plus we're also doing stuff on event holder websites using tier 1 CDNs, and we're syndicating a lot to newspaper websites as well. In terms of our live sports workflow, this so we're out doing the live production, or we're taking a production feed from an OB company at a sports event. If we're doing the production, we we have an OB capability, like an 8-camera replays, full motion graphics OB capability, and you can see here that what we're doing is we're uplinking then our program output via LiveView back to our MCR, and linking doing everything via a central master control room is really, I suppose, the key benefit for us of LiveView within our workflow, is that we have created a very MCR-centric live sports production workflow where everything that we're doing is coming back to our MCR, and then it's going out from the MCR to the various places where people watch it. The reasons why we've taken that approach is that there's a whole lot of things that we do at the MCR. So we do an extra layer of stream-specific production at the MCR, and that can be things like taking a feed from a sports event in a couple of languages, but it's a single feed with a couple of languages, and then we break out those languages, send one language to one site, another language to another site. Similarly, we have done things, for example, for the England and Dutch football teams, where we've taken a single live view feed, and then we've added Dutch graphics and sent it to the Holland YouTube channel for the Holland FA, and then added English FA graphics for the England team. There's also we're also doing things where before events we're always live at the MCR. So we by having a live view, or having a live connection between the event and the MCR, and then another live connection from the MCR to the viewers, what it means is that before the start of an event, we're showing the viewers, we tend to show the viewers either pre-recorded clips and a ticker to say, welcome, the live will be at whatever time, or we show a slate and a ticker, and we can update people as to what's happening. At the same time, the on-site production team is freed up to be able to do their last, pre-broadcast checks, which, tends to be a frantic time. And it's the last time that you want to be constrained by being live to the viewers. So we bring a live link up from the event. We monitor that for a period of time, make sure that's all okay, tune it to make sure that we're getting the best possible feed quality from the event. And then once we are ready to cut live, it's just a simple camera cut within one of our vision mixers within the MCR. So there's never any kind of going live stress of not being absolutely sure that all parts of the workflow are working, because we separately are able to kind of check to MCR and from MCR. And that is all, that's all enabled by LiveView. We are taking satellite feeds as well and downlinking from satellite, but the majority of that is through cellular bonding. So the biggest benefit for us of using cellular bonding is in supporting a centralized MCR approach to our streaming, and all the benefits that gives us for the kind of viewing experience that we give viewers. A couple of other benefits we have is that we don't have to send out the same level of staff and equipment to events just for the streaming. So we centralize our encoders at the MCR. I don't know if anyone's ever tried to move an elemental encoder, but they're big mothers, and they're not that easy to fly to Argentina or to Brazil or wherever if the England football team just happens to be in Brazil. Easier logistics, and we don't, sometimes we have someone who's driving the live view at an event. If we're doing the production, we just actually manage the live view remotely from the MCR, and no one is actually looking after it on site. There's someone who can look after it if they need to, but it's basically all centralized. I spoke about no pre-live stress. That's a big thing for us. It's actually why we first got into a MCR-centric approach was the desire to cut out the stress of going live and pressing the button to go live, and just wanting to have a workflow where we're absolutely sure everything's okay and going live is just a camera take. Something that we've also, I'd say, experimented with, and we've done it for a number of events, is where we've done production where rather than doing the OB on site, we've actually moved the OB back into the MCR, and we've had cameras just connect directly to backpacks, and then have multiple backpack feeds go back to the MCR, and then do the camera cutting at the MCR. So that's not something that's applicable for all sports or all events. It's if you need to have kind of frame accurate synchronization and audio synchronization, then it doesn't work, because you can set the delay between the event and the MCR across multiple backpacks, but it's not down to the frame. But it is something that does work, and we have done secondary football games that way, for example. And we have done other things, kind of like the example that Ronan was talking about with the marathon, where we actually have had people, for example, going down a zip wire with just with the GoPro on, a little live view belt pack, and transmitting live from the zip wire, and then cutting between other live cameras on either end of the zip wire. Talking a little bit more traditionally about cellular uplink, and I suppose I don't think of it as cellular uplink. I think of it more as internet contribution, but and internet contribution which just happens to include mobile internet, but it's certainly not. It's not the main way that we look at our use of live view as a cellular uplink technology, but for a kind of a traditional view of cellular uplink, the advantages over on-site encoding for us in our workflow is, first of all, is that we just decouple our live streaming from whatever the availability of the internet is wherever we're going. So we've got to a point now where we tend to not even, depends on the event. I would be lying to say that we don't even check, but we don't have to be as rigorous about, have we got exactly the right kind of bandwidth? Have the people who have told us that they've got the right bandwidth, have they really understood what it is that we're asking for? Are there no firewalls? Is it up as well as down, whatever they've said? Have they done the tests correctly, all that kind of stuff? So we have a level of assurance. Whenever we can add extra bandwidth, be that Wi-Fi or wired internet, into the backpacks, we do. But if we can't, then we're good to go. So, for example, the England team the other week when they were in Brazil, we didn't take a backpack. We got a backpack there. Before the Brazil game, we did a press conference from the team hotel, and then we did a training session from the Maracanã. And if it was any other technology, it wouldn't have happened, because couldn't afford a satellite for that kind of thing. There was no internet. The 3G at the Maracanã particularly was really crappy, but the live view does give you a whole lot of options for tuning the feed that you're getting so that you can make the best of whatever is available to you. Something else that we do is, and this examples are from one of the things we do is we do free sports for vans around Europe. So that's things like skateboarding, BMX, stuff like that. And when we did an event recently in Italy, and we took the live view backpack, we just went to the local phone store, got a bunch of prepaid 3G SIMs, threw that in the backpack. I think it cost us 200 quid, and for 10 3G SIMs and 50 gig of data or something ridiculous. But we principally were actually just using two-way satellites. So KA satellite. We don't bother about buying news spotter and dedicated bandwidth because in terms of the live view is used to using networks which are changeable. So for the live view, you throw, what we do instead of using a high-cost satellite, a broadband satellite service, is we just add a couple of broadband satellite services. So we have KU on our truck, and then we have a couple of KA flyaways. We just add those three to the live view, and the live view creates the live feed back to our MCR over those links and does it very ably. And then we had the 3G SIMs just in it for I suppose safety. And on the last day of the event, it was raining, so there was no skateboarding. So it was decided, we're just going to do the prize giving over the other side of town. What we were able to do, because we were using a live view, we just took a single camera, took the backpack, connected over 3G, and then we were able to do live coverage on the, we were able to react to the changed circumstances and do live coverage on the final day. Even if when we are, I suppose we use, I think we're probably unusual in that we actually use live view even when we're not using 3G, 4G, or KA satellite, where we're also just connecting up local networks to it. And there's a new LU Lite out, which kind of effectively allows you to build your own live view. So you can create a server which has a couple of 3 Ethernet interfaces into it and connect it across those 3 interfaces. That has a number of advantages over shipping an encoder, and we saw that just yesterday, where one of the things we're doing this week is live coverage of the Paris Air Show. There was a bad thunderstorm in the area. We had 10 megabits uplink. After the thunderstorm, we only had a meg uplink. We're sending the Paris Air Show feed to 3 different, to YouTube, Ustream, and Livestream. So that's a total of, I think it's about 15 to 20 meg that we're sending by the time we do backup streams for those services. Is 15 or 20 meg that we're publishing for the various places that people can watch it. We had a 10 meg service, so we're able to support those multiple destinations where people are watching. But then when the service got squashed down to 1 meg, the LU Lite was just able to automatically adjust the quality of the video accordingly. So we were still live. The quality wasn't as good, and people, viewers were able to see that the quality was a bit crappier than we would have liked it to have been. But we were live for the period that we really didn't have enough bandwidth to be doing a live stream. And then once the connections were fixed and the 10 meg came back, we went back to the best possible quality. Something else, saying about decoupling us from the venue internet connectivity, we take whatever we're given. Like anything we're given at the venue is great because we just add it and it's an extra bit of security. We actually have, using the example of, I use the example of the Paris Air Show, but in football, we'll typically, for the Football Association, be streaming to a number of different platforms, which, if you add it all up, is quite a bit of bandwidth, which, is a lot of bandwidth that you have to then arrange if you're, doing, England women's football, which we tend to produce at secondary grounds around, so England's playing Japan this coming week at Burton, for example. And we can go along to Burton just on the day. We'll see what we can get in terms of local bandwidth, but we're reliant on we can rely on the 3G coverage as well. And, a couple of disadvantages of our approach, I suppose, is one is, by centralizing everything in the MCR, we need to have an MCR that's staffed, but we're sharing that across multiple events, so we kind of get our economies there. The other disadvantage of our particular workflow, I think, is the double encoding, where we're encoding it at the event, bringing it out as an SDI, and then encoding it again for the viewer, so you're losing something in that double encoding. That's balanced a bit by the fact that the live view is sending a high-profile H.264 feed, so it is a good quality SDI HD feed that we're getting out at the MCR. We do a lot of events where we're using, I don't see cellular uplink as a alternative to satellite uplink. There's certainly, events that we do which we just do on satellite, and if you're doing live sports on TV, we're not using live view for that. But if we're doing the same live sports also on the internet, we use live view for that. And lots of cases we're using live view and satellite uplink side by side, where for the kind of reasons that where we've got on TV, it'll be a very limited live window for the sport. So if you consider cage fighting, for example, it'll only be an hour and a half program, but by having the live view there as well, it's actually more cost effective for us to have a live view to do the preliminary part of the night over the live view back to our MCR rather than extending our satellite booking. And then finally, there's also some non-live workflow benefits which we kind of specialise in live production and streaming. So we only use this to a degree, but an example is at the Euros where we had, I think, 7 backpacks floating around Ukraine and Poland with the English and Dutch teams and various sponsors who were creating content and then distributing it through MSN and others. And what it means is, if we do a live event and then we're doing an edit at the end of the day, and then we want to upload that edit, the last thing you want to do at the end of a long day of live production is to be hanging around waiting for a slow FTP to finish. An example is 2 weeks ago we did a BMX event in the back blocks of Argentina. And FTP was terrible, and if you relied on the FTP, it would actually take you 2 days to get the file up. With the live view, you can play directly into the live view, so you don't have to render it out. So if you edit it, you play it, you see you've got a problem, you just go back to your timeline straight away, change it, and then play it out again without having to wait for the rendering of clips. The live view then H.264 encodes it on the go and then sends it up bit by bit, and it presents itself on the server, and we've automated that so that we get notified that there's a clip ready at the server, and then that can then get distributed to whichever site it needs to be distributed at. And you can stop and start, you can you can lose coverage, you can go from one coverage to the other coverage, it takes over, where it's left off, kind of a little bit like Aspera, I suppose, in a fixed world, although not quite as fast. So, is that it for both of us?
Actually, it's right on time, and if you have any questions, please.
For you, actually,
Sure.
how do you see you also have the LiveView software, the phone application, we have the LiveView Lite for laptops and so on. How do you see software being the market for LiveView in the future?
Well, I think the software right now is mainly used, I think, for editing clips and sending materials, more of live, obviously. But if the reporter is in the hotel and wants to do a good interview versus Skype one and use our bonding, or he needs to deliver data from the hotel or from the field, like I said, from the field, he can do that using 3 or 4 cellular networks and do that in a much easier way than and much faster way than starting to send his edited clip right now to the news station over Wi-Fi, over LAN, and because it not necessarily knows where exactly. So this is primarily the use right now that we see for the software one, and this is kind of a complementary to the other system that we have. But the light one is the software one for Windows or Mac. It's mainly used for that.
Yeah, while you're speaking, I use your iPhone now.
Oh, great.
So it's really easy to get live in combination with the 3G and the Wi-Fi network. But do you see this as something that we can go out and say to many users and say, like, this is for all our viewers, our readers, you can have this app and then kind of give us some of your live
Yeah.
feeds?
So what we have right now is, first of all, we have two solutions. One of them is ad hoc. So for example, I mean, you're driving out of here, God forbid there is an accident and someone is having a live view one, he can get a permission from the station for 24 hours, for 3 hours to broadcast, and then it's shut down because you don't want to start monitoring. But definitely we see that giving the power to the masses to start and going over. The only question is permitting and from the network itself and allowing that signal to come over. But once we get that hurdle over, we think that we'll see a massive amount of freelancers that has an access to a live view software, and whenever they are and whenever they need to shoot something, not necessarily you need to shoot to send out. You need to send out a photographer. On the LU center, which is the management, you have a geolocation one. You can see all the live view units that are currently there, and you can actually reach out to that person and tell him, we need you to grab a 5 minutes clip out of that area, and so we can broadcast it.
Because we've been doing this with Skype, and we also use this RT has what's called this reporter, which is kind of a side license. Yeah. So we push all these small apps to all our journalists, photographers, staff in general, and say, if you're somewhere that something happened, just Skype or use this reporter. So this live is kind of
Great.
coming in that one. Just one question, Scott. You said you use two-way. You use a standard subscription of 2 XL lines?
Yeah.
You said you combined 2 of the dishes, or many edition. How do you do that? What you take it from?
Well, for the live view, it has 2 Ethernet connections and Wi-Fi. So you got 3.
All right.
Yeah, but we tend to use at least a couple. Craig.
What sort of bit rates are you guys getting for a live sports event consistently, and do you see this at some stage becoming a viable substitute for satellite?
Yeah.
So, for example, what's an SD feed? What do you term
Yeah.
an SD broadcast feed? Is this a viable solution in the real world?
So an SD broadcast feed in H.264, depends on the amount of movement, but you're looking at about 2.2 to 2.5 meg or 2.2 to 3 meg. With the current, it's actually changed a little bit the way that LiveView handles SD, where it'll actually now peak much higher than that. So it'll start to run up at 5 or 8 or whatever if you let it. HD, we used to be doing HD at around 3.5, 4 meg. Something that often we do when we're doing HD is we actually, one of the settings you have is you have the opportunity to take out some of the pixels, so you can broadcast at half HD. As far as your technical workflow is concerned, you're still HD, but you're actually still you've got half the pixels as what you would expect, which is still twice what you would have with SD. So if we're streaming, sometimes we do that rather than broadcasting full HD. What we'd actually, but so yesterday I suppose I was seeing that we were doing at about 9 meg for a sports event that we were doing yesterday across 3G and 4G. We're finding in the city 4G makes a very positive difference for in-building coverage particularly, which is more than the added bandwidth of 4G is not so important, because if you're splitting it across 7 SIM cards and you're adding whatever's available for Wi-Fi and Ethernet, you don't really need the added 4G bandwidth. But what is useful is the added 4G in-building penetration. So if you were trying to be live from here, for example, where you're 2 floors underground, the 4G would actually be potentially very useful. What we also do for someone, we kind of have 2 nightmares when we do events. The lesser nightmare is turning up and finding that we're 2 floors underground. But we just have a toolkit of, we carry a kilometre of fibre optic cable with us, so we can kind of go wherever really. The other problem that we have is if you're doing in stadium events, there's some crazy things do happen to the networks after a certain level of I suppose once calls start getting dropped. What seems to happen is that it only happens at some stadium, not all stadiums, but what happens is that some operators will actually shut down data totally, and you'll actually see data, no data, in which case we just make sure that we're, if we're at Man City, we make sure that we're on the Man City network, and that we've got 3G and the Man City network. If the 3G goes away, we're still on Man City's network.
So my question about, do you see this as a viable alternative to satellite?
Yeah, I don't today, but that's I think that in the streaming world, I think it's merging, but because if you look at, certainly not the case in sports. If you're watching sports on your big TV screen, and I suppose fewer and fewer of us are doing that, but if you're watching sports on your big TV screen, you expect it to be crystal clear, perfect quality, and but in the streaming world, if there is a momentary glitch, then people aren't sure, is it my connection, is it my computer, is it something that the guys up the workflow have done. So it is more accepting, I think, of any imperfections. But on the other hand, if you do watch any news programs, there's more and more TV which is being generated through Skype or little apps like LiveView created or whatever. So we're actually, the two worlds are coming together, and I think that as a result of that, we're probably becoming more used to kind of having an internet experience on TV, even if it's delivered by TV. So it's kind of both ways. The quality is getting better, and I think people's expectations are also changing, and the way they consume sports is also changing. We find with things like the FA Cup draws, we can see that we'll have more than 50% of viewers will be on iPads and iPhones, and we can see that the majority of those have got Sky broadband. So you'd think that they're sitting at home, you know, kind of watching something else on TV while they're watching the FA Cup draw online, despite the fact that it's on TV.
How does the operational cost compare satellite to making 10 or 7 phone calls at once or
Yeah. It's so live view's cheaper. It's not a lot cheaper. I'd like it to be more cheaper. But it's you know, you're looking for the kind of workflow that you know we set up for live sports events. We're looking at about, I suppose, a third of the cost of a satellite of an SNG truck, including the uplink. But probably maybe less than that once I actually take into account the full costs of, you know, then making sure that we've got enough receivers at our MCR, that we have the right licenses. You know, you quickly get into a very kind of complex, expensive world of, you know, kind of discovering that it's actually 422, you know, HD and MPEG-4, and you don't actually have that.
So talking about MPEG-4, does the live view server just give out SDI, or does it give out like an MPEG transport stream?
It also gives what?
Does it give an MPEG transport stream? Can you connect a live view server directly to some other device over IP, or does it just give you an SDI output?
It gives you SDI output as far as...
Yeah, so there's been... You talk about having... I don't think that they've talked about having MPEG transport streams, but
yeah.
you certainly talked about having cloud connectivity direct to Wowser and what have you, which is one part of the kind of the live view offering we haven't tried.
I believe the spec for the LE1000 it's also RTMP.
It's out, yeah.
Is that the server?
It is the server, yeah. It can be physical or cloud, as we just mentioned here.
That's, you know, for us, you know, we just in our MCR we just have a, you know, I suppose maybe in that sense we're old-fashioned, but we just have everything through a video router, so you know everything's connected to everything and it's all automated through that.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining us.
Cheers. Thank you.